Hello and welcome everybody to the Walk Off. I'm Scott Belford, normally joined by the best co-host in the biz, Adam Mack. We're not sure where he is. He is MIA, so we've got probably the best pinch hitter we could possibly drum up in this amount of time here. Hey, Kami, nice. Joel, right? Good to see you again.
Hey, Scott.
I want to just get right into this because I've wanted to talk to you, Joel, about the IKF signing and the KK signing and all of this stuff. And it's just now it's when you fill your cup up too much and you can actually see the little dome on the cup of the water. That's how I feel right now with not being able to talk Blue Jays the last little bit. So I want to say, to start with, to the grounds crew and everybody, apologies. I hope you had a very good Christmas season and all of that sort of thing. I know that Adam and I have not put out an episode since last Friday, so I know that you have gone without, but appreciate your patience. Again, all the happy holidays and stuff, we're going to blame it on that, but we're back, and we're going to get right into it here. We're going to talk IKF. We're going to talk Kiermaier. We're going to talk where this team goes from here. Bichette, some interesting numbers on him. Joel has a great idea, or at least one that maybe we can warm up to, about Vladdy and third base. Yamamoto goes to the Dodgers. It's funny because Yamamoto goes to the Dodgers 1 week ago. It already feels like that happened 2 years ago, Joel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with that.
So
especially if you look at his Instagram account and see who he was following about 2-3 weeks ago, there were a few Dodgers names that were on his Instagram account. You're just instantly the dominoes are all gonna fall in their direction, aren't they?
Joel, are the Dodgers gonna fly a banner after all this? Are we gonna look back in 10 years and be like, you know what? Fucking worth it. Wow. They just added $1 billion worth of players, and there's two of them.
Yeah, and then Glasnow makes it. That was a pretty big addition signing wise. It was
139 million, something like that. Yeah.
Ohtani not only is the unicorn of the sport, but he had that concept of how to defer all that money. That was his idea. And that's going to change the game. You would think that they would fly a banner definitely in the next 4 years. That has to be a team it's got the talent to win. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything in baseball.
It doesn't.
There's the Braves will have something to say to it. The Phillies will have something to say about it just getting out of the National League. So they've got a ton of talent,
Joel,
but they have to
perform. You look at the top three of that, like Mookie, Shohei, and Freddie. I can't think of a better top three.
Yeah, that's how many MVPs in the last.
Literally,
Freddie Freeman had an MVP, and Mookie had an MVP.
Shohei had a couple. Yeah.
Well, Mookie was runner-up last year, I think, for behind Acuna. So it's just they're all at the peak of their powers. They're all, two of them had 1,000+ OPS seasons last year. And Will Smith is no slouch. Muncy. See what they have with Gavin Lux coming back. It's going to be really and for as grumpy as you are as a Blue Jays fan, because we had our teeth in Ohtani there. It seemed like I was literally in California at the airport when he was apparently in California at the airport, right?
Yeah.
And so I was I was looking around and but at the same time,
are there any tall Japanese men here?
yes, that's what I was scanning the horizon for. But it's got to be good for the game, right? This is going to put so many eyes on the sport. All to bring up. I'm going to my phone here. I'm not doing it like this is like my text chain with Tommy John's wife, right?
Yeah,
Which is like blown up. All the attention towards him is blown up because of this big signing and
of
how,
course.
Tommy John
Oh,
is so
Tony going through
involved.
his second TJ, absolutely,
Right.
it all plays
So
in.
it's just, yeah, it's big all over the place when you see football players and that quote is going around, football players want to be basketball players and basketball players want to, everybody wants to be
Yeah,
a baseball player, right? And Mahomes talking about it, he's at 450 million or something on what he makes and looking at 700. That's just like, you're on a mountain. Now there's another mountain that's again
yeah.
a mountain above that mountain. And it's staggering. And
And whether baseball actually does anything with it or not will remain to be seen, because if there is a league out there who can screw up all these eyeballs on them, it is Major League Baseball. But it's uplifting, man. Like you just hear baseball being talked about amongst regular fans who would never be talking baseball in December. Like, it's
yeah,
great.
it really is. It really has been momentous. And um being a big fan of uh Japan and the Japanese system. Like I Yamamoto, like let's not this guy is gotten better every single year since he won the Sawamura Award for the first time. He's a
Yeah.
triple crown winner 3 times in a row. That's 9 crowns in the last 3 years that this guy's put on his head. He
25
is
years old.
25.
Like
It's
talent like that doesn't. I think this is what a lot of folks maybe missed, is that he himself. I mean, we talk about Ohtani being a unicorn, but Yamamoto himself is also a unicorn, because you do not see that sort of talent being available at that age, right? Like, I know there's the pushback from some fans saying he's never played in the big leagues, and that's true. Obviously, time will tell where that goes. But I mean, we watch the scouting systems amongst Major League Baseball, the player development systems amongst Major League Baseball continue to grow, continue to improve. Like, this is this isn't a roll of the dice here for $325 million,
no,
Joel. This is
no,
a
no.
pretty sure thing.
Yeah, this is a rather sure thing. And like you can be afraid of his size. You can be afraid of any pitcher with Tommy John. Anybody who throws north of 96, you worry about the arm. Um, but when it comes to sure things, no pitcher in the NPB has ever done what he has done, and he did it by the end of his age 24 season.
Yeah.
No one had
And
won
it's
3 Sawamura awards, and he he's competed already on the WBC stage. He's competed outside the NPB, but
yes.
I wanted to use Bauer as kind of like a litmus test. Bauer goes over there and was throwing 99.6. Like he upped his velo 2.5 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like Trevor Bauer's throwing harder than he ever was an all-star in the
Mm-hmm.
NPB. Had about a 2.90 ERA where Yamamoto, I think, was what 1.2, 1.16. He was like a third of Bauer's ERA. It was so there's a guy who as recently as what 2021
And Trevor
has won a
Bauer's
Cy Young.
32, Joel. So
Yeah,
like, just to take those age, and that, I love the comparison of Bauer, because this is a guy that, despite how you feel about him as a fan of the game, was a Cy Young winner, was
yes.
literally given the highest pay of any baseball player in the history of the game
Mhm.
before shit hit the fan with his domestic situation, right? So like, great comparison to watch him go to Japan, do what he did, and still be in the shadow of Yamamoto.
Oh, drastically in the shadow, but was an all-star, pitched incredibly well in Japan. Just Yamamoto lapped him 3 times in
And this is
it's really
where,
amazing.
and maybe we do a quick left turn here to Blue Jays land, because it does make an easy transition, just talking about where the value at starting pitching has hit in this league. And you look at
Mhm.
what the Blue Jays front office, and believe me, Joel, we are going to rip into this front office a little bit here. But what they have done well is they've built a pretty damn good pitching staff, and they've
For a
done
good price.
so yeah, and like for prices that honestly, when they first signed them, I was like, I don't know, like Gosman, I was all on board with, but even Bassett, I was like 3 years, 63 mil, like who? And then you watch what he did, and I mean, talk about shoring up that rotation. He did beautifully. We watched Jose Barrios have a bounce back year. He's under contract for 6 more years. Like we watched Yusei Kikuchi have a career season, and you look at the Boston Red Sox, and they just signed Lucas Giolito for 2 years, $38 million, dude. 2 years, $38 million. I watched that happen, and it made me laugh because I was just
Yeah,
like,
Giolito's
anyone
been a
saying Alek Manoah doesn't have value is fucking loco, dude.
oh yeah, Giolito I think his ERA plus is a minus.
Yeah,
It's like 86 over the last 2 years. It's not, but yeah, there's 40 million for a guy who you can run out there every 5 days, and there's so much value to that, even if the ERA is
yeah,
north of 4. So
which is wild. Okay, so right now,
agree
by the
with you
way,
though
Joel,
on the good pricing on those starters,
right?
right? Like you
Yeah,
look at put Barrios, what, 127 together with Gosman's 110, that's 227. Add Bassett, that's 280. Add Kikuchi, 310, that's still less than Yamamoto.
those are our top 4 starters is less than Yamamoto. It's
Yes, our top
incredible.
4 starters is less, and then Manoa is less than Yamamoto. So if you were to include him as a fifth, all of
Yeah,
our 5 starters
our
are getting
5
paid
starters.
less than Yamamoto.
It's wild where the pitching market has hit, and it does make what we've watched the Blue Jays front office do to point feel underwhelming. I'm a little confused by some of it. So Kevin Kiermaier, let's start there. Obviously, last week we heard that KK returning to Toronto 1 year, $10.5 million deal, $10.5 million. In an isolated signing, I love it. I think for the money, for what he provides defensively, for what a good human being he is, like when you look at the lineup and look at what Anthony Bass wound up, the ripples he caused and the problems, and just what a huge mountain out of a molehill wound up being over a guy that was like a fringe bullpen piece. You look at Kevin Kiermaier and you're like, there's no concern of anything like that coming out of him. So like again, just isolating him as a 4th outfielder, maybe a regular in center field. But this is my question for you: is he a 4th outfielder slash set late guy replacement in center field, or is Kevin Kiermaier now? Are we just rolling back the outfield we had last year? What are your thoughts on that, Joel? Like, what's your impression? I know this is all speculation because to steal an analogy from Adam Mack, right? Ross is cooking. He's baking a cake here. We got to wait for all the ingredients to be added. And I mean, mid off season, you do have to give that to them, right? Right? Like, there's obviously more happening, or there fucking better be. But what are your thoughts on Kevin Kiermaier?
Yeah, I if we're looking at going into spring training and that's our outfield, then it's kind of the same issue that we were going into last year, where I was terrified about the amount of drop of slugging percentage that our outfield had over just the course of 2 years. And that was, and I'm one to keep bringing up Randall Grichuk as a 4th outfielder. But there was a time where Randall Grichuk was our 4th outfielder, and that was a 20 home run guy coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And he was inconsistent. All of those horrible things that Grichuk was as a big, heavy strikeout guy, but 20 bombs would would play, and it
Yeah.
does play. So it's this situation where if your three outfielders are Varsho, Springer, Kiermaier, you know, let's say Varsho pops 25, Kiermaier repeats with his 8, Springer gets 25, so you're looking at 58 home runs between your outfielders and whoever your other outfielder would be, you know, Witt is not. Maybe we're going to sign Witt again long term, not long term, but like 2 years because we're not doing that option year. That option year is not
Ugh,
coming back. So
yeah.
maybe we negotiate something with Witt, but it's that moment where you don't know what else is coming back in. IKF kind of seems like he can do Witt's job, I guess, but to me, it's a
IKF is
situation
a
where
weird one.
yeah,
IKF is a weird one. And the reason I feel it's weird is in my opinion, there are two ways of looking at this deal. And that is number one, they have zero faith in Santiago Espinal anymore because the redundancy that is IKF seems apparent to everybody. But this is where we get back to you got to kind of see where the rest of the ingredients land in the baking of this cake. But it does feel like if that's the case, maybe Biggio or Santiago are on the way out because you know what? $15 million for a utility guy for 2 years, it's not cheap. Like, listen, IKF has the resume, right? He's got a gold glove. Yeah, I know it was the 2020 season. Nonetheless, he's proficient in the field. He provides a little bit of pop, but he's another one of those guys where you're like, so we have another dude who can play 6 positions and hit 15 dingers? Like, isn't this what we're trying to get away from?
yes, that's why it's a different situation if they go big on Bellinger, right? And that's the scary thing to talk about is like 200 million on Bellinger, running that. You look at Springer and you're like, okay, Bellinger's 28, but it's that season that he had that one good season that he has removed of two absolutely atrocious mid
Yeah,
100 batting average seasons that
yeah.
you're like, does that repeat itself? The batted ball data, people will bring that stuff up about Bellinger, about how the exit velo might not be where it was during those prominent years where he's hitting 40 home runs and winning MVPs. So it's a sketchy situation where I think his expected batting average was closer to 270 than the 309 that he hit. So, what are you going to get? Are you going to go 200 million on Bellinger and then he regresses to, more of a high 700 OPS player and then you're drastically overpaying
Mm-hmm.
but we're kind of in that situation because Ohtani and Yamamoto pushed back free agency so much. Everything was so dependent on two players that here you are December 30th and you know so many teams are scrambling looking at what's left on the board and yeah, that's if we're looking at running this team out there, Chapman, are we assuming the Chapman's going to San Francisco or something at this point?
See, and this is where when I saw IKF sign with the Jays, I did think maybe this is signaling that Chapman is not returning, right? Because that does provide them somebody who can play a very proficient third base, give their up and coming Damiano Parmigiani, Addison Barger, Aroldis Martinez a little bit more time and put a little bit. It definitely takes a little bit of pressure off the internal options. And I don't think there's an internal option, and I could be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong on this, but I don't think there's an internal option that is right knocking on the door, just ready to take over, right? Like there's probably going to be some growing pains. So allowing some of these guys the opportunity to win the position from a dude who's going to provide at least defensive capabilities at third, be able to play some shortstop. Again, especially if they don't view Santiago Espinal as like the one thing about Espinal was that he defensively was fantastic. We never had to worry about him at third and short when he would fill in. And last year seemed, you look at his defensive metrics, he was technically not even an average player, which is like, for what he provided with the bat. So maybe that's all this is, right? Maybe Espinal is going to be a bundled in some sort of deal that is bringing back that power bat we need. It's just, I guess my problem is, Joel, is that they're all in on Ohtani. There's all the rumors that they were a finalist for Yamamoto, and I take that with a grain of salt. I mean, they were probably 4 or 5 down the list. Why wouldn't you be interested in such a talent that's available at that age? But, and then you hear them tied to Cody Bellinger, and then things go quiet, and then you get KK back, and you get Isaiah kind of Falafa, and you're just like, I don't like. Are we still going to add a big piece? Because we fucking better add a big piece, man. Like, there's
Right?
no power on this team. And I
Yeah.
know that Vladdy's going to rebound. I know there's going to be some rebounds. There has to be. But, dude, we need a bat.
Yeah, we need a bat. We absolutely need a bat. And I guess transition my thought process, like when you bring in IKF, who is like a Varsho on the infield, right? And it's I fear, like I said, the lack of power, especially out of the outfield. Now Chapman leaves. That was like such an inconsistent bat for the last 2 years, but it was still solid above average production for a third baseman, right? So like for that to step down from like 115 OPS plus to like 85, that's a big drop. It's a big hit in offense. So you got to be. I know I see video of Vladdy playing, winter ball, Dominican winter ball, and having fun and playing softball and doing stuff like that. And he's trimmed down a bunch. I was always on the fence about him going to first. I always said in his early years, let him figure out third base. Let him be abysmal for 2 years. Let him be really terrible at that spot and figure it out. And we brought in Chapman. We said, go over to first, be a first baseman. Maybe 10 years too soon. Maybe this is something that you should have been at 35, not at 22. And I look over at Devers, who is not by any means an amazing third baseman.
But he's proficient now.
But yes, he has gotten to the place over those early years where now he's closer to a league average defender. And that offense plays so well for a 26-year-old left-handed guy who can absolutely slide. So it's just like those growing pains that you need to deal with. Bo, we saw the growing pains. He went to 8 errors last year. It was the dream situation for Bo. At 25, he's figured out, without the shift, playing straight up, Bo Bichette is a really solid defender at shortstop. Wow, at 25. Growing pains, right? And now we're sitting in this situation where you've got this talented guy at first base. If Chapman's out, maybe the internal option is move Vladdy to third, get a Rhys Hoskins, get someone like that. Bellinger is the situation where he can play first, and you can still run that outfield out there, and then slot Bellinger into the outfield on occasion when you want a little bit more offense. And and look at a Soler and look at a Teo coming back as in a DH spot. To me, it's like that. It allows you to look at Rhys Hoskins, who's a guy who could come on this team, and he's coming off a few injuries, but in a good place to produce at first base, be a DH on occasion, and for you to get a power combination out of your corner infield, and I just seeing that video the other day of Vladdy fielding and making a really nice play, on the left side of second base. And the other thing about him is he's got an incredible arm. he might have the best arm on the team.
Oh, he has a
And
cannon.
you're negating a tool. That
Yeah,
is a tool. That is one of
yeah,
the 5 tools to a ball player. And it
yeah.
is, not, he will make a throw from first base on occasion to third on a guy trying to advance,
Sure.
but it
We've
is
seen him do
rather
the
negated,
yeah,
you know?
we've seen him be the cutoff guy and hammer it home. Like we've seen him put his arm on display a few times. But you're right, man. At first base, you're literally negating a tool of a guy who has 5 tools. Um, I would be curious to see what that would look like. Vladdy at third base again. My problem with it, honestly, dude, is that I feel like they're so far into this window, this contention window that they're in, that it just feels like a dangerous move. But that said, honestly, it's like IKF is a
Yeah, you've
dangerous
got IKF
move.
as your blanket.
Yeah, like what are, yeah, like,
You got a
and
safety
I mean,
blanket to try it.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So, um, if Vladdy were to go to third, Bellinger, probably the best option for rotating back and forth. I know, like money aside, like is Bellinger the best bat at this point available that we know about? Like on the free agent market, he's got to be the best bat available, right?
Yeah, I
For
would
what the
think he's the
Jays
best. He's a
need.
lefty. He
Yeah.
can run well. He can play the outfield. He can play center field if we want him to. Um, I feel like it's your. We were ready to go $500 million for a player, right?
Yeah.
We're ready to go $500 million for a player who's 2 years older. So it's just like, is Bellinger half as valuable as Ohtani? Defensively, he plays the outfield really, really well. And he put up an 870 OPS last year,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
close to 100 RBIs. Um, I think that is probably, like I said, overshooting what he would do. I think that was like a little bit of a high end year for him. So you are paying for, him at a high point where I don't know if he follows that up necessarily, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
he's in any way going to drop back to being that 160 guy. I think maybe he hits 265, 270, 25 home runs, 30
Yeah.
home runs, and maybe close to 100 RBIs on a team like this. But a guy that you can slot in 3, 4, 5 in your lineup, who is able to play the outfield and the infield. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's got to be where you look. The other weird thing that I brought this up with Adam literally last year, and it was something they did with Joey Gallo defensively, which was the outfield shift of clustering your
Yeah.
outfielders, all in right field, almost
Mm-hmm.
like a hybrid version of the shift. What that also means that you can do is rotate your outfielders pull side. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you have two outfielders like Kiermaier and Varsho, that makes me think go out and get a guy like Jorge Soler and put him in the outfield and just rotate him to opposite field
Yeah.
side on every hitter,
Exactly. That's
because that will legitimately take 200 balls in play away from him over the course of the season.
Joel. Has anything like that ever been done? Can you
Never
think of
been
us? Never, right?
nothing, never. And
That's a
it's
really
still allowed. It's
interesting
not allowed on
idea.
the infield.
It's okay.
On the infield, you cannot rotate your sides anymore. So you can't
Yeah.
take your second baseman and move him over to third in between. That's not allowed. But you can rotate your outfielders. So I'm looking at this situation where you've got Springer. Maybe Springer plays a little bit more DH. And
Yeah.
then you bring in another slugger. Like if
This
you
is
were so
such an
worried about Teo,
interesting idea, dude. Like
yeah,
it's funny. I've never even heard of anything like this. I by the way, grounds crew, I would love to know what you think about this for those of you who are watching it, of like having a liability like Jorge Soler who just fucking pummels the ball
yeah.
and is going to put up big home run numbers, but then you can always put him into whatever
He's
field.
got to do some jogging. You got
Yeah,
to jog a little
exactly.
bit. As soon as the out's done,
Huh.
you jog on over to the other side, you know?
This
And
is but this is legal. You're allowed to do this.
100% allowed to do this, and it would take away 15 to 20% of the balls that would come to you over the course of a season. 15 to 20% of the balls, like you're talking about 150, 200 balls that don't come to you because they come to a majority 75% of the time they're either center field or pull side.
Like you've
right?
got two of the best defensive outfielders in Major League Baseball on your team, in Kevin
You
Kiermaier
can
and Dalton
play up their
Varsho.
defensive metrics more.
Yeah,
Varsho
absolutely.
can become even more valuable by just having the ball come to him more often. Right. So I'm just like, there's this move that
Man,
nobody
this is like an
does that we
outside
can
the
do.
box thought. I like it, dude. I
Right.
like it.
And it covers, it allows Teo to come back and you not have to worry about him so much.
Yeah.
Like a guy like Soler to come in and you don't worry about him so much. And he can go into the outfield.
Why has nothing like this been tried, Joel? I mean, we watched Kyle Schwarber out in fucking no
There are
man's
so
land with.
many good outfielders who play center field and have played left or right. There's so
Yeah.
many. I'm not saying that that's a talent that's universal. Some guys have
No,
issues,
no, 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 no.
right? But
But you
there
look
are
at this team
outfielders.
and the strengths of this team, and like that is one of them. We've got
Yes,
Varsho and Kiermaier.
Varsho in Arizona had played every outfield position. So it's like he has a knack for slotting wherever you want him to slot in the outfield
Mm-hmm.
and be incredibly proficient at getting jumps on balls. He's got the best jump and he's plus what 29 runs saved. He led the league in that.
Yeah.
Didn't get a Gold Glove. Didn't led the league in the defensive stat of saving runs. Didn't get a Gold Glove for it.
Yeah.
As much shit as I give the guy, I really felt for
Yeah.
that. The fact that they rotate him so much that he doesn't classify. It's like outfield Gold
Yeah,
Gloves.
he
That's
doesn't.
it.
Yeah, he doesn't
It's
have
just
the
outfield. There
reps.
should be three of
Yeah.
them. Who are the three best outfielders? I don't give a shit. But yeah, no, I don't understand why it hasn't been done or tried because I saw that taste of it when they were
Mm-hmm.
defensively shifting for Gallo. It shows you're allowed
Mm-hmm.
to do it. And it's just like, here's this opportunity. The outfielders just got to jog a little bit and you maximize your defensive output.
Yeah. Like you've got a guy who's as versatile as Varsho is and can play all over the outfield. That's a really interesting way of covering up a defensive blemish with a guy like Soler, where he's in your lineup because you need to give George Springer more DH time, and now you've got to put this liability in the outfield, but you can kind of negate that by playing which side a guy's going to hit the ball on. That's really,
The commie
man.
shift. I've been trying to get it named that
Yeah.
for years now, and somebody's going to do it. And I'll be like, that's my thing.
Okay, Joel, let's talk Bo Bichette real quick here for a few reasons. Number one, I think that IKF was, like you put it, right, the safety blanket, and maybe you can try Vladdy out at third. I think he's also a safety blanket for Bo, who we saw huge progress on the defensive side of the game from him last year. We watched him become a league average defender. And this is a guy who is just straight up a liability at shortstop. He was airmailing and short overthrowing. I think it was like 27 errors or something like that he had in 2022. I should look it up, but like it was close to leading the league. So you have IKF who is going to still provide that. I mean, let's face it, Matt Chapman makes anybody you put at shortstop a better shortstop, right? Like it's his game. It's why Matt Chapman is even still being talked about with a $200 million price tag, because let's fucking be serious. His bat isn't going to get him that kind of money. Like, this is where the market's at for third baseman, and this is why Chapman is so valuable. So you bring in IKF, and here's some stats on Bo Bichette for you, Joel. The Blue Jays, with 3 seasons in a row of 30-plus doubles and 20-plus home runs. This is the list. Carlos Delgado did it, 97 to 2003. Vernon Wells did it, 2022 to 2026. Joe Carter, 91 to 93. And Bo Bichette, 2021 to 2023. Some pretty darn good company there. And if you can continue to have Bichette do what he's done the last few years, which is play almost every game. Last season was the first time, Joel, that Bo Bichette missed more than 2 games since 2019. I mean 2020, I know it's short season asterisks, but like pretty impressive the
rock
amount
solid
of
playing shortstop.
exactly. Exactly.
Um,
So go ahead. Go ahead.
I've always liked to draw the comparison to Jeter with him. Um, Jeter always gets torn apart for his defensive metrics, but Jeter was like 315 career hitter, second all time for hits by a righty. Um, just so unbelievably clutch from being able to hit the way he does in the regular season, play 18 seasons healthy. The
Hmm.
core of that guy's career was 18 straight years where he was putting up a 315 batting average, 25 doubles, 15 to 20 stolen bases, and playing 155 games every single year, then transitioning into the postseason and hitting 300 in the postseason. Putting up an additional 160 some games in the postseason, hitting 315 and setting countless records in the postseason. But the idea that Jeter is overrated just shocks me because it's to have that consistency at shortstop for 18 years was the galvanizing force for those 5 championships that they won with him.
I'll be honest, dude, and I agree 100% with you. I think a lot of the pushback is he's a Yankee, right? You're
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
on you're putting on the evil empire uniform and expect
yeah.
the rest of baseball to be like, yeah, let's tip our hat. It's just,
I totally get it. I totally get it. And
because you are
um,
correct though. He is completely unfairly ripped apart. I mean, you look at his numbers, his defensive value, just the fact that like even even if he was an average shortstop, which for sure he was at least an average shortstop. Everyone talks like he was just this giant black hole at short. He wasn't. I mean, he just wasn't.
no, and it's kind of the comparison of a shortstop who will try to make every play. I think we brought this up last year. Was Bo will always make the throw. Okay. A lot of guys don't make the throw. A lot of guys just stop, hold the ball. Oh, that's a hit. I will not throw this ball away. Bo
Mm-hmm.
always makes the throw.
Yes, he does. For
Bo,
better or
no,
worse.
yeah, for better or worse. But the understanding that if he makes it, he makes that fluke play 30% of the time. That equals the 30% of the time that it just bounces on the ground, stays in front of Vladdy, and there's no advancement, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the 30% of the time where he'll throw it out and he'll get to second, right? So he values the out as an equal opportunity as the guy getting to second base, right? And I think that a shortstop who tries to make every play and sometimes looks like a absolute fool doing so, but then makes the fluke play, that saves the game. I've always been more of a favor for the guy who is never handcuffed to go for it. He's gonna do it and go for it every single time. And then the fact that under a shift mentality, Bo is ripping 25 to 30 errors, but under a straight up old school play it straight up, he's at 8 errors in 135 games played, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, we look at Simeon becoming a Gold Glover. Simeon at like 27 was in the 30s for errors. He was
Mm-hmm.
having 30 error seasons at like
Mm-hmm.
27 and then became a Gold Glover when we moved him to second base and is a Gold Glove infielder. Um, Bo, after that improvement at 25, I always dreamed of average defense out of him. Now I think Gold Glove is very possible.
Yeah.
I think Gold Glove by the time he is 28, I think is very possible that because that drive to consistently get better every single year is always in that. As soon as the season stops, Bo is trying to get better at baseball.
I love that you brought that up because that is what makes Bo such a talent is that he could have very easily just been like, yeah, maybe I'm a second baseman. He could have very easily done
Yeah,
that. The Jays,
yeah,
if let's be real, dude, if Bo Bichette was fine with moving to second, he would have moved years ago.
mhm,
He
yeah,
wasn't.
no,
And the Blue Jays saw what a value add that is if he could be an average defense, have average defense. And he pulled it off in 2023. So like there's a lot of guys who would just shrug and be like, listen, I'm gonna make good money at second base. I have an incredible bat. Move me.
Mhm. Every
How about?
other shortstop who would be better than Bo Bichette right now is making $300 million,
Yes. Yes.
right? Anyone
And
that is ranked higher than him, and these are all guys closer to 30, if not 30 already. Lindor,
mhm,
Seager, all
mhm.
these guys. Tatis is younger, but he signed instantaneously. So let's, but all these guys, that's not even a shortstop anymore. What am I talking about? That's a left fielder. So
Yeah.
there's a right fielder. So yeah, you look at Bo, and he truly filled into that shortstop spot, making him a $350 million type player when that free agency comes up. If he was a second baseman, maybe it's two, maybe it's 210. There's a drastic difference between what a star second baseman makes and what. Look at the difference between Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. One
Yeah.
makes 170, one makes 325,
Yep.
right? They hit right next to each other. They play right next to each other. One makes double the
Mm-hmm.
other. Yeah.
No, it's a very good point. Okay, I'm going to ask you some yes and no questions, and you can obviously expand on them if you choose to. The
Okay.
Toronto Blue Jays go out and get a fifth starter. Yes or no, in your opinion? Doesn't need to be a splashy move, but they
Um,
go out and they sign someone who competes with Alek Manoah, Bowden Francis, Ricky Tiedemann for that
I
final.
if you want to sit and look at your like the team 2 years ago, the strength was offense. The team last year, the strength was pitching. It was
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmingly amazing pitching. Some of the best pitching in the history of the franchise,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Some of the
Arguably the best.
healthiest pitching too.
Yes. Yes. So um when our team was so offensively built, I still felt like there were room to improve the offense. I still felt like bringing in a Freddie Freeman would just make that offense even nastier, right? That's my opinion, was to bring in a needle moving left-handed bat.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in the position of it being our starting rotation. So would I be totally against? I think what I'm trying to say is, as much as I am willing to go after Bellinger,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of me, there's a part of me that's willing to go after Blake Snell
Ooh, I
and
like that.
say, let's just be the team that pitches. And then I also get something inside me goes, what's Pete Walker and Blake Snell like together? Because
Mm-hmm.
Pete Walker turns left-handed pitchers into
Weapons.
absolute, yeah, just their weight in gold, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we saw it with Robbie Ray, we saw it with Kikuchi.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it time and time again where he takes those
It's
lefties.
exciting to look at Ricky Tiedemann in
Yeah,
that pitching lab and know what they are, lining him up to be. It's
yeah. J. Happ is another example of just a
yeah.
guy who comes in and Pete Walker knows how to get them into the strike
Dude,
zone,
he won 20 games with the Jays. Jay Happ
right?
did.
J. Happ,
Like,
it's
I know wins aren't everything in pitching anymore, but still, you win 20 games. That's
oh,
insane.
I'm all for wins. I'm all for
Yeah.
wins. You're in the game to the point where the team no longer loses the lead. You
Mm-hmm.
got to a point in the game after the fifth inning, right? After the fifth inning, which is a big reason why pitchers don't get nearly as many wins, because you're getting fourth inning pulled and you don't. Jay Happ was a guy who let in three in the second, pitch four shutout innings, get to the sixth because
Yeah.
he was a classic starter, and he would get that win because the team would grind out that win. And
Mm-hmm.
that is we don't talk about wins being a valuable thing anymore. No, it literally says that you were in there, and then the
Yeah.
team did not lose the lead after that, right? Like after you left the game after the fifth inning, which is such a big deal now. So 20 wins is, to me, staggering. And it all seems to be that those guys who found something else were erratic strike throwers. They had walk issues. Pete Walker, what's if Blake Snell just won a Cy Young? What's the issue? He led the league in walks,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like there's a part of me that goes, why not just hit the gas on pitching and accept that as who we are, and so
this is where the KK and the IKF signings do make Blue Jays fans nervous, because it might be where this front office is at, right? They made their move. They tried to get Ohtani. He would have been the perfect bat / pitcher to insert into any lineup. Let's not act like Toronto specific here, but yeah, like maybe doubling down on defense and pitching, if that's what's available, right? You look at the free agent market, and it's probably the
yeah.
weakest free agent
But
market
then
for bats we've seen in years. Strong
what does
pitching
that
wise.
if you go for a Blake Snell, right? You go for a Blake Snell. Does that technically open up a Kikuchi, Biggio, Espinal
Sure,
deal, right?
sure.
To then get the bat, is that then open up? You solidify your pitching, but then you take one of those starters and you find another place for them, because pretty much all of them are. You're not going to deal Gosman, but like, do you technically look at Barrios and say that's a really great contract?
Maybe there's value there. Yeah.
Is the fact that we can't fill the bat the way we want to on the free agent market something where we get it? They're still pitching out there a little bit. Jordan Montgomery hasn't signed, I don't believe,
Yeah.
yet. There's, the weirdest thing is that Clayton Kershaw is just going to go back to the Dodgers when they want him to, but it's just like he hasn't yet. And you always sit there,
Yeah.
ERA was 260 something last year. He's
Yeah.
still Clayton Kershaw. He just don't pitch him in the postseason.
Yeah.
Learned, just don't pitch him when the clock turns to October. He's not allowed to pitch then.
Josh Hader.
He likes the color blue, right?
Josh Hader, yes or no? Do you think a big bullpen ad is something that could be beneficial here, or do you think that starting is more the direction if you are going to double down on pitching?
I don't think Hader.
No.
Don't get me wrong, I like Hader a lot, but I just I'd probably go after Hicks.
Yeah,
before I would
that's
go after
interesting.
Hader.
Yeah, just it's going to cost you less, that's for sure. And he is younger, obviously, and
yeah, and I just like the way that Hicks slotted in that bullpen last year.
he did.
Like
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cheaper, and I still run Romano out as the closer. So Swanson was great in his spot. Yeah, I feel like I would probably slot down a spot, go after Hicks, and just hope that maybe a little bit more time with Pete Walker gets him to being as nasty as a Hader.
As a Hader,
right? Throwing 104, 105, you should be able to get that nasty, just with a little bit more location.
Okay, Joel, let's wrap up on this, because it feels like, and I mean, it felt like this before, but it does feel like there is a work stoppage coming in 2026. I think the CBA is becoming more and more of a contentious point with the Players Association. I know that there were more rule changes, of which, by the way, the MLB PA voted against all of it, but they don't have the majority of votes. So if Major League Baseball wants to force it through, they can, and they have. So these are the rule changes that are coming in 2024. 18-second pitch clock with runners on instead of 20 seconds. Joel, I am going to run down the whole list here and ask, but this one in particular, you watch them remove, I think it was 27 minutes. The average game was shorter by 27 minutes. What are we doing here? Like, why are they shaving another 2 seconds off this pitch clock? I don't understand it. When the players don't want
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I felt like we got what we wanted a
Yeah.
half an hour off the game. I I don't think that we baseball is a leisurely activity. It's something that you go out and for the history of the game, it's something that you enjoy it at the pace of baseball, and the pace of baseball isn't 1,000 miles an hour. It is
Yeah.
now, and it got to a place where I think we all felt like it was drastically improved. Do we need to push that anymore? I don't think so. Um,
I don't either. And
I
this
understand.
the next rule also plays into everything you're just saying, right? So they're going from 4 mound visits down from 5. Again, like, do we need to save that third? I don't understand. Like, do we need to save that 30 seconds? Like,
Yeah, it's I don't think those two things together are another commercial break, right? Like over the course of just like that's what we're talking
yeah.
about here. We're talking about I really no, I don't understand it. And I think the real the reason for that one was that they weren't over the course of most games, those 5 mound visits aren't being used. But that doesn't mean that in September, what rate are they used in September when it's everything's on the line, right?
Yeah.
Like when things getting serious and you you have an expanded roster, you have more decisions to make. Maybe that is one more mound visit. That's one more, especially when you're coming down to the wire at the end of the season and everything could lead to that being one game out of it or one game,
Hmm.
into the playoffs. And so it's just, I understand that there's some courses early in the year where the game flies by a little quicker and you're not making those mound choices or mound visits. But later in the year, as soon as you get out of August and you're going into those last 25 games of the season, I don't, to me, it makes a lot of sense that you have that option, especially late in
Hmm.
the season. But whatever, we're making up. They've gotten really carried away with rule changes. They're power hungry now, and they
Yeah,
get to
it
see
does
how.
feel that way. It does feel that way. Like this one too is another one. If a pitcher starts to warm up before an inning, he must face at least one hitter, which again, and by the way, MLBPA didn't want any of these. So all four, the last rule was the runner's lane to first has been widened to the infield grass. I think that came from that injury in Pittsburgh where there was the collision. Anyways, that seems more like a safety one, right? Like it's like widening the
Yeah,
bases. You're going to encourage
yeah.
more running and stuff. Like that one, I'm fine with. But these like trying to save, like trying to shorten the game again by another minute or two, it just, I,
Well,
I don't know.
look at Tim Mesa. Like we Tim Mesa had an absolutely incredible year last year.
Didn't
What
he?
Tim Mesa would have been in baseball 3 years ago would have been a lefty specialist. And
Yes.
they fundamentally took away his role, and they still have a lefty specialist, but it is very much contingent on there being 3 lefties out of 4 coming up in the lineup
Hmm.
and working around that one righty, or you're coming in with 2 lefties and there's one out to get, but you're up against 2 lefties. There's all these little ways of using a lefty specialist now, as opposed to 2 lefties are coming up. Let's bring him in.
Yeah.
Oh, he's done. Okay, now he's out. Right? Like that was a move. That was a
Yeah.
chess move that they just say, okay, now you can't take your king and your rook and alternate spots. That's not allowed anymore. And
Yeah.
you're like, that was a move.
And
That was a
you're
move for
like,
100
what if we
days.
do it in the outfield?
Yeah, why not? Right? Like, if the great thing about baseball is that there's always been a history of people trying to skirt the rules and
Hmm.
trying to find a way around what is written. so that they have to write something new
Yes.
and fix that new problem. But yeah, I feel like they
I
found
mean,
a
the
little.
examples of that are endless with baseball. Like, there's so many ridiculous ones. Like when they stopped allowing, I'm gonna say midget. I know it's not the proper term, little people or whatever, right? Like, that's how ridiculous baseball got. Is baseball got to the point where it's like, what if the strike zone's only 3 inches? What if we use like a really short guy? That's like literally
Yeah,
baseball's mo. Like,
yeah,
can we skirt the
that
rules?
was yeah, and the the little fella has 1,000 on base. He's got his one walk, and yeah,
Sorry to derail you there, buddy, but
no, no,
I
it's
agree with
it's
what
so
you're
true.
saying.
It's
Like,
you know take it back to just innovations that did great things for baseball. Like that's what this is trying to be. It's trying to be an innovation. Negro League Baseball did the lights at night, right? They
mhm.
created night baseball because
Yeah.
they needed to be able to use stadiums after the Major League Baseball teams would use the stadium. So they had to come in and use the stadiums later on and created night ball. So they brought in all of these lights, and all of a sudden there's night baseball. Major League Baseball is in a lull. What do? They grab the lights, bring it over to Major League Baseball. Everybody loves it. It's a staple of baseball. Nothing like watching baseball and seeing
Oh,
a ball
a
disappear
100%.
into the darkness of that black sky. It's just beautiful. It's just incredible. So these innovations go back and trying to change the game all for the better. But yeah, like just to see such a great improvement with the pitch clock and then to try to tweak it more. I don't understand that. I don't
Yeah.
the one with the baselines I kind of get because there's always been a little bit of an issue inside and outside the foul line of where to run.
Hmm.
Trey Turner in the World Series, just collisions at first
Yeah.
base. Hope if that can skirt that issue in any way, then that's always good.
Yeah.
Are there more? You have a few more rule changes.
That's all of them. That's all of them. So
When is robot umpires? Has that been moved back to
they have,
2025, or is that
I
still
think it
a?
has, I think, so I think this is what's happening with it. I think that they are on the fence as to whether they are going to go full robo umps or if they're going to do the challenge. So I think that they're going to roll out the challenge throughout all of minor league ball and see how it goes this
Mhm.
year. And then there'll be a vote next year. So no, right now, robo umps, not a thing. Umpires are still going to be out there screwing the game up. So we can look forward to that.
Yeah, I was literally watching the World Series with a friend of mine, and it was Moreno was up 3-0, 3-1, and he takes a ball just drastically. No, it was a 3-0 count, and it was 3 inches outside, goes to 3-1, and you're like, that would have been the tying run. Tying run would have been on
Yeah.
first base, and he's up there, he grounds out, and you're sitting there watching that in the World Series. And my friend goes, I'm not going to watch anymore. Tell me when the robot umps come, and I'll come back to that. And I was like, yeah, it's like once you put up that little rectangle and you showed how bad some of those calls are, the layman fan who comes in and goes, this is still happening in your sport, and it. It's just
Mhm.
like I I I always I was so I'm a fan of framing. I'm a fan of the old what a catcher
Yeah.
provides of being able to snap the glove shut and just slightly bring it into the zone. That's such a nuanced skill. But yeah, I
That is, and we'll wrap up here because we don't need to constantly go over all these rule changes. But that is one thing that a lot of these rule changes has done is it's taken skills that had been developed and made them irrelevant.
mhm.
And it is kind of too bad that that is some of those things have happened. Anyways, Joel, I'm gonna leave it at that. I just really appreciate. By the way, I'm in Dominican Republic right now. I don't know if you can see the. Ooh.
What?
And
Look at you, man.
I know, and I'm going to some winter league playoff games. So the wife and I are going to go see Lacey and January 4th and then January 6th. And this is the funny thing, dude, is that they don't sell tickets in advance. So we're going to have to go like line up and get tickets like it's 1995 and then like go to the
That's
games after.
awesome.
Yeah, it's so
That's
cool. I'm really
awesome.
looking forward to it, man. I'm really looking forward
Oh
to it.
man, I'm jealous. That's incredible. Enjoy it, dude. Enjoy it. That should be
Thank you,
amazing.
my friend. And yeah, let's talk again real soon here. Excited about Around the Horn and where we're headed with that. Obviously, we'll dive more into that in the new year here. Too bad Adam wasn't able to join us, but appreciate you picking up the slack, my friend.
No problem. Glad to show whenever you need me.
Love it. All right, grounds crew, thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. We will see you Tuesday for mailbag. Cheers, everybody.